Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss AWS MSK. MSK stands for Managed Streaming for Kafka, which is a fully managed AWS service for running Apache Kafka on AWS. Okay, so let's discuss about this AWS service in detail in this course. So let's take a look at what this course contains. First topic will be we will introducing you to Apache Kafka, the basics of Apache Kafka and what it is used for. And next, we will introduce you to MSK AWS service. And after that, we will discuss the two types of MSK clusters, which is the provision cluster and MSK serverless. And after that, we will talk a bit about MSK Connect. And in the end, to summarize everything, we will do an hands-on exercise to see how to use MSK and get familiar with using MSK and running Kafka on AWS. Let's talk about Apache Kafka a little bit. Kafka is a distributed event streaming platform for real-time data processing. At the heart, it's basically an event streaming platform, and you can produce the messages or events to Kafka and consume the messages from Kafka. The applications which produce the messages or events to Kafka are called as producers, and the applications which consume the messages or events from Kafka are called as consumers. Okay, the Kafka runs as a Kafka cluster and it contains multiple brokers in it. So that is why it is called as a distributed event streaming platform, and it's highly scalable and durable for processing like large data sets in real time. Okay, so to give you an example of like one use case of Kafka, it can be like let's say you have an e-commerce website and you're so basically let's say someone places an order on your e-commerce website, so the placing of an order is called as event. Okay, so this event can be streamed to a Kafka topic called as orders, and from this topic multiple consumers can consume that orders data. So let's say you have one consumer which consumes the data from orders topic and does the next steps like packing or let's say like payments or whatever, right? So you can consume from that and do that, and you can have another consumer consume the data from the same topic and send it to let's say a logistics partner or something like that. Okay, so that is the beauty of Kafka. It decouples the producers and consumers. You can produce the data from multiple producers to a single Kafka topic and consume the data from that single topic uh, from multiple consumers. Okay, so this tutorial is not in-depth tutorial on Apache Kafka. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Apache Kafka before I move on to AWS MSK. However, if you are interested in learning Apache Kafka in more detail, do let me know in the comments and I'll try to make a video on that one. Okay, so let's say your application is using Apache Kafka and you want to run an Apache Kafka on a Kafka cluster. Okay, so there are two ways you can do that, right? You can create a self-managed Kafka cluster and run it, but there are a lot of challenges that are associated with running self-managed clusters. The first one is setup and configuration. You will have to like set up your hardware and network design, and you have to configure your cluster brokers and everything. And then there is an operational overhead. Once you have set up your cluster, how do you monitor it? How do you monitor the usage, the CPU usage and the storage, everything from of your cluster, and how do you scale it based on the usage? And next thing is the maintenance of the cluster. And you also have to take care of the security like authentication and authorization into your Kafka cluster. Who can write messages and who can consume messages from your cluster, who is able to weave the messages on your Kafka cluster, and etc. And how do you encrypt the data that is stored in your Kafka cluster? Okay, so there are a lot of other challenges as well associated with managing your self Kafka clusters on your own. Okay, so to solve this problem, there are a lot of fully managed Kafka services that are available in the market. Confluent, for one, has its own Kafka as a service, which runs on Confluent Cloud. So that is one thing, and AWS also has its proprietary AWS MSK service, which is fully managed service for running Apache Kafka workloads on AWS. Azure also has one which is called as Azure Event Hub. So in this tutorial, we are going to talk about AWS MSK and see how to use MSK and quickly run your Kafka workloads on AWS. Okay, so let's talk about some important features of AWS MSK. So it's a fully managed Kafka service. What I mean by that is all the cluster provisioning, configuration, the scaling, and the maintenance of your cluster is completely handled by AWS, so that you can focus more on developing your applications, right? And it is like any other AWS service. It's highly available and scalable. The brokers are provisioned across multiple leases. It ensures your fault tolerance and scalability. Okay, and the security is comes integrated into your cluster. AWS takes care of your data encryption in whether it's the data in rest or data in motion, and it also you can also integrate your Kafka AWS MSK cluster with AWS IAM to give to maintain to control the access. Okay, and you can also integrate AWS MSK with VPC to secure your cluster in terms of network configurations. Okay, so all these things comes inbuilt with AWS MSK, and it is also cost effective. I wouldn't say running your Kafka on AWS is easy cheaper than running it on your own self-managed cluster, but in situations where you are not sure about your workloads, and you are not sure about scaling up and scaling down, you might end up spending more if you are using a self-managed cluster, whereas if you are using AWS MSK, there are no upfront costs, and it's a pay as you go pricing, and you can scale up and down easily in MSK, so it's cost effective as well. Okay, so the next thing is how to use MSK. It's pretty simple. You just go to AWS MSK servers. You can create AWS MSK cluster using management console or CLI or SDK. So once you create a MSK cluster, you can create Kafka topics on that cluster. Okay, once those Kafka topics are created, you can produce messages and consume the messages from those Kafka topics um, using your applications. There is also another feature called as MSK Connect, which lets you create connectors. So the connectors are basically a way to like integrate Kafka with your existing systems easily. So we will talk about MSK Connect in detail in the next section. But that is also one of the important features to easily create and producers and consumers for your Kafka topics. Okay, so we will do these three steps when we do hands-on in the next section. Okay, so before we create a Kafka MSK cluster, I wanted to introduce you to the two types of clusters, or two types of let's say MSK features that we have on MSK. So whenever you create a cluster, it asks whether you want to create a MSK provisioned or MSK serverless. So I just wanted to list out some key differences between these two. Okay, so first, on the resource aspect, if you create a MSK provision cluster, you basically specify the number of brokers that you want, and what is the storage that you want and the throughput that you want. Okay, uh, and if you are choosing MSK serverless, you just create your cluster, and AWS handles all the scaling up and down on infrastructure based on your workloads. Scalability, again, you have to monitor your cluster and scale up and down depending on your use case manually. Okay, whereas if you choose MSK serverless, you will AWS automatically does that based on your workload. And billing, so it depends on the number of brokers you deploy, and the storage that you select, and the data transfer costs in case of MSK provision clusters. For MSK serverless, you pay for the data usage, like ingestion, retrieval, and storage. So the best use case for MSK provision would be when you know your workloads, right? Like the workloads are very predictable, so you know how much brokers you need, how much capacity you need. Okay, so in those cases, you can use MSK provision because you would not need to do scaling up and down very frequently. Whereas if you're not sure about your workloads, and the workloads vary, let's say in a day, only in 1 hour you're getting a huge workload, and the rest of the time you're getting very less data, you can use MSK serverless, so that it can it scales up when required and scales down when not required. So it can be very cost effective option in that cases. Okay, so in the demo, what we are going to do is we are going to create a MSK cluster in AWS MSK, and after we create a cluster, we are going to create Kafka topics. Okay, After creating the Kafka topics, we will produce the messages to the Kafka topic and consume those messages from Kafka topic. So this producer and consumer will be created in an EC2 instance, which we will create in the same VPC that we have created our MSK cluster in. So using this demo, I want to show you how to basically create a cluster, create topics, and how you can create producers and consumers and publish messages to Kafka topic and consume the messages from your Kafka topic. Okay, so let's start this demo and see how to do it. So these are the steps that we will follow. So firstly, we will create a MSK provision cluster, and then we will configure the security aspects. Like we'll create an IAM role and security groups that are required. And then we will create an EC2 instance in the same VPC that we created our cluster in. So in this EC2 instance, we will install Java and Kafka, and then we will create a Kafka topic in this cluster, and then we will produce and consume messages from this EC2 onto this topic that we created on this cluster. Okay, so I hope these steps are clear. So we will do each of these steps now. Okay, I have logged into my AWS account. So let's go to MSK. You can search for MSK here as well. So once you are in AWS MSK console, you can click on create cluster here, MSK cluster. So let's use this quick create template for now, and let's call it demo cluster 1 itself. So like I was telling you, there are two cluster types that you can choose. Okay, one is serverless and the other one is provisioned. So let's choose provisioned for now. And now this is the Apache Kafka version that you want to deploy. So you can choose the various other Apache Kafka versions that are supported. So let's go with 3.6.2. And the broker type, let's keep standard brokers, and the broker size, let's actually keep a very small one since it's only for demo. So I'm going to keep T3 small, and the next does storage. So I'm just going to give it 1 GB, so that should be enough for us. And I'm going to leave all these things default and click on create cluster. Okay, so once you click on create cluster, it will take around 10 to 15 minutes to create it. So we'll wait for this cluster to get created. Meanwhile, we will also create an EC2 instance that we will use to create the producers and consumers. Okay, so let's go to instances and let's click on launch instance. Let's call this Kafka producer instance. Okay, we will also run the consumer as well on the same instance. Okay, let's not create two instances for it, but like I said, you can have any number of applications that can consume from your Kafka topic, so it need not be on the same instance. Okay, so I'll call it Kafka producer instance. Amazon Linux should be fine, and T2 micro is okay. Let me create a new keypad. I'll call it as Kafka instance. Create keypad. So downloaded it. Network settings. So for now, let's create the security group with default, and let me click on launch instance. Okay, so we'll wait for this instance to get created and also this cluster to get deployed. Okay, they're still creating this cluster. Okay, I think this instance is already launched and it's running. So let's do one thing. Let's install Kafka, Java and Kafka on this instance by the time this cluster gets created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to SSH into this instance. So I'm going to click on connect, and let's click on SSH client. Okay, so this is the command. Okay, so let me go to my terminal. I'll just cd into the folder that I downloaded this PEM file. So the PEM file is in downloads folder. So I just change my directory into that, and I'm going to connect to this instance. Okay, I think we need to change the permissions of this file. So let me run this command and then run this command. Okay, so now we are logged into this EC2 instance. Once you are logged into this instance, you can go ahead and install Java and Kafka on this instance. So I have the commands that I will share with you in the description to do this. So firstly, on this EC2 machine, we will install Java, and after that we will download Kafka. So this needs to be replaced with your Kafka version of your MSK. So that will, you can get it from here. So it is 3.6.0. So let's actually replace this thing over here. 3.6.0. Okay, so yep, you can download this Kafka, and you can we need to extract this Kafka. And once we after extracting the Kafka, what we'll do is we will install a jar file, which is basically required for using AWS IAM authentication method. So we will install this jar file in Kafka libraries, and after that we will do some client configurations. So I'll explain this as we do. So firstly, let's install Java on this EC2 machine. Okay. So just so that I'm clear on the steps that I'm doing, so this EC2 instance is basically not our Kafka cluster. Okay, so Kafka cluster is what we are creating in AWS MSK. So this EC2 instance that I have created is basically to create my producers and consumers into my Kafka topics. Okay, so in order to run this producers and consumers, I'm just installing Kafka on this machine. Okay, so I have installed Java. So the next step would be to download Kafka. Let me wait for this to get downloaded. Okay, so Kafka is downloaded. So let me just extract this. Okay, and I will just go into this directory and download this jar file. Okay, I will tell you why the jar file is required later. Okay, so into the libs folder, and I'm going to download this AWS MSK IAM authentication jar file. Okay, so that is done as well. So once that is done, what we'll do is we will go into this bin folder and edit our client.properties file. Okay, I think we need to. Okay, so here let's edit this client.properties file. So here what we're essentially specifying is we are just specifying the security protocol and the SASL mechanism, which is going to be AWS MSK IAM, and we are just giving the modules and everything required for that. Okay, so whenever it authenticates with Kafka, it will refer to these parameters and authenticate it. So now we have completed the setup on this EC2 instance. So what we have done is we have installed Java, and then we have installed Kafka. And after installing Kafka, we have installed a Java file basically to support this AWS MSK IAM authentication. And we have configured this client.properties. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we will create a Kafka topic. And then after the topic is created, we will like create a producer and produce the data to the topic, and then we'll create a consumer and consume the data from that topic. Okay, so before we create this topic, we need to make sure that the MSK cluster is up and running. So because that is where we will be creating our Kafka topic. Okay, so let me just go back and check if the cluster is created. No, it is still getting created. Like it says, it can take up to like 15 minutes to create. So we will wait for that to complete and then come back. So now our MSK cluster is created and the status says it is active. Okay. So the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to create an IAM role and attach it to the EC2 instance that we created. Okay, so what we are essentially doing is we are giving the permissions to this EC2 instance to be able to do certain operations on this MSK cluster, like creating the topic on this cluster and producing the messages to this cluster and reading the messages from the topics on this cluster. Okay, so let's go to IAM and create that IAM role. Okay, so let me just create a policy first. And let's select EC2. Sorry, my bad. So I'll just click on JSON and I'll just paste this policy that I already have. Okay, so essentially if you see this permission, so I'm just giving allow on Kafka cluster connect, alter cluster, describe cluster. I'm just giving star, but you can choose to give only your MSK cluster here as well. So I'm also giving a topic, all the topic permissions, write data and read data permissions as well. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Click on next. Policy name I'm going to give as EC2 Kafka policy and click on create policy. So next I'm going to create a role and I'm going to select EC2 here and let me search for that policy that we just created. So I'm going to attach this policy to this role. Let's call this as EC2 Kafka role. Okay, and click on create role. So now this IAM role is created. So we'll just go to this EC2 instance and associate that IAM role with this instance. Click on actions here and click on security, click on modify IAM role and select this EC2 Kafka role that we just created and click on update IAM role. Okay, so here if you go to security, you should be able to see this IAM role associated with this EC2 instance. Okay, so now the next thing that we are going to do is we are actually already logged in. So I'm going to open another session of this. Okay, so in another session, I'm going to log in into the EC2 instance again. So I'm just going to copy this command over here and I'll tell you why I'm doing this. Okay, so we are logged in both these places. So first thing that we will do is we will create a Kafka topic. So to do that, this is the command so bin Kafka topics.sh. So basically we have to execute this script and pass these parameters in our EC2 instance to create this Kafka topic on MSK cluster. So how does it know what is our MSK cluster? It knows it through this parameter called as bootstrap server. So this bootstrap server string, we have to get it from our MSK cluster details. Okay, so let's go here and in the cluster details, I think it should be somewhere here, view client information. So this is the bootstrap server string URL that you have. So you can copy just one of this. We don't need to copy all those. So and we will replace this with this command. Okay, so now we are going to run this command to create the topic. So before we run this command on our EC2, we should configure a security group in such a way that the MSK cluster security group allows the traffic from the EC2. So to do that, what we will do is we will go to this demo cluster and we'll go to the security group of this cluster. Let me just find the security group. Okay, so this is the security group of this cluster. And what we're going to do is we'll also get the security group of this instance, and we will allow, basically we'll allow the traffic from this instance into this MSK cluster in the security group. Okay, so this is the security group of the MSK cluster. I'll just edit inbound roles, add a role. For now I'll just keep all traffic custom, and we'll search for the security group. Okay, click on save rules. So we're just allowing the traffic from that EC2 instance into this MSK cluster, so that we'll be able to execute those commands. So now let me copy this and go back here, go into this Kafka installation directory and run this command. Okay, so basically I'm just running this Kafka create topic command and passing these parameters. And if you see here, I'm also passing this client.properties that we created earlier. Okay, and I'm naming this topic as MSK tutorial topic. Let's hit run. Okay, I see some error over here. So let's see what this error is. It is saying no such file exception client.properties. I guess we will have to pass the entire path of this client.properties file. To copy this entire path and paste it over here. Okay, so I'm just going to pass the entire path for this client.properties, so it is easier for to locate that file. Okay, so let's run this command again. So we should now see that that topic is created. So let's wait for that result. Okay, so it says created topic, MSK tutorials topic. Okay, so now this topic is successfully created on this MSK cluster. So next thing what we will do is, I have this two instances of SSH logged into the same EC2 instance. So here I will create a producer. Console producer means basically you will be able to produce the messages from your console, and here I will create a console consumer to consume this messages from the same topic. Okay, so the commands for the same I have listed here. So here I'll just modify this as well to add the path to client.properties, and here as well. Okay, so let me first create a producer here in this and hit enter. So you will be so now you got a console here, so you will be able to produce messages from here. Okay, so to consume those messages from this topic, which is MSK tutorials topic, we will create a consumer. Okay, so I'm going to create a consumer on the same EC2 instance over here and hit enter. Okay, my bad. So I need to be on this directory, and let me, so since I've given from beginning, it will basically consume all the messages from beginning. So let's wait for this consumer to get created. And if you see here, I got hi, hello, and if I type how are you, I'll be getting that here in my consumer. Okay, so this is a very simple producer and consumer. So this producer can be your application with all the logic that you have, which produces the messages into this Kafka topic, and the consumer as well can be any of your application which consumes the messages from this Kafka topic. So like I said, it's real-time streaming. So as soon as you put something into the topic from your producer, you will be able to consume uh, it on from using your consumer. Okay, so if you see, it's so it's working fine. So that's how you can create a MSK cluster on AWS, and then you can create a Kafka topic on your MSK cluster and produce the data to your Kafka topic and consume the data from your Kafka topic. So in the end, I just wanted to cover one more topic, which is Kafka Connect. which is very important in this entire Kafka ecosystem of things. So we discussed what Apache Kafka is and what Apache Kafka topics are and what producers are and what the consumers are. Okay. So Kafka Connect is basically a service which enables you to integrate your external systems with Kafka easily. Okay. So let's assume that you have your Oracle database and you want to stream all the changes from Oracle database into your Kafka topic and then put those changes, put that data into Snowflake, right? Instead of you having to write your custom application to basically fetch those changes from Oracle and then write those data into this Kafka topic and everything, what you can do is you can create what is called as Oracle Source Connector. So Oracle Source Connector is basically a kind of, you can think of it as a object that runs on Kafka Connect service, which automatically connects to your Oracle and writes the data into your Kafka topic. Okay, so these are called as source connectors, and you have various source connectors that are available out there. So you have like a MongoDB source connector. If your source is as MySQL, you have MySQL source connector, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you can use these connectors and run it on Kafka Connect and integrate your external systems to Kafka. And similarly, you also have your sync connectors, which basically read the messages from Kafka and put it into your destinations. So suppose you want to put this data from Oracle topic into a Snowflake, you can of course write your own custom application, but instead of that, you can run your Snowflake sync connector on a Kafka Connect service, which basically takes this data from Kafka topic and puts it into Snowflake. Okay, so this is what is Kafka Connect. It's basically a service which lets you run these source connectors and sync connectors on it, and which basically enables you to integrate your external systems with Kafka easily and create your data pipelines easily. So MSK also has this MSK Connect, which is basically a fully managed service for running Kafka Connect workloads, and it simplifies integration with external systems. So it enables seamless data movement between Kafka and external systems like your databases, storage services, or other data systems. So, and it runs in a serverless mode. You don't need to create a cluster or anything for that. You can just directly go and create your connector by supplying a plugin. So I'm going to do a hands-on video on this later, but you can think like it's a serverless mode. You can run your connectors and connect to your external systems and pull the data from there or write your data to external systems. So this greatly simplifies your ETL pipelines and real-time data integration. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you found this video helpful to learn about AWS MSK. In the coming videos, I'm going to do more hands-on videos as to how to use this MSK for your real world applications. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.